Hey there, listeners, and welcome to season 2 of Project Zero. Goals the same as last year. We're going to hear some journeys from some of the best project leaders in the game. But this season, we're taking a little bit of a different detour, focusing a little bit more on AI and the impact that it's having on project management. And today is a really special treat because we're talking about how AI is really impacting project management through a new tool. I'm Alex Tuck, and I'm the host. And I am with CEO and co-founder of Coworker and Creative Harmony, Shawn Harris. Welcome to the podcast, Shawn.
Hey, Alex, how you doing? Thanks for having me here. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait to talk about Harmony for sure. Shawn, start us off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do.
As you said, I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company, Coworker, along with a couple of other incredible team members and co-founders. We've created an agentic project manager. No new UIs, no new dashboards, just a worker that embeds in the environment and feels like a remote colleague. I've been in the technology space, a technologist, a geek for 20 years. And I probably could actually add some more numbers to that, if I'm being honest, and have spanned both large enterprises, the IBMs and the Dells of the world, as well as, being a founder a couple of times. So this is not my first rodeo. Had a company in my early 20s that we ended up selling to IBM and stuff. Now, many moons later, I'm here at it again, and so far, so good.
That's awesome. I am very excited to jump into the product. We'll talk about that a little later, but let's start back where it began, right? Like, how'd you get into the project management space? How'd you get into project management? What'd you do right out of school?
Yeah, I actually, while in school, I got my first full-time job at IBM. So I was still in undergrad when I was working there. It was quite the balance, but I was able to carry a full course load as well as work. I think it was like 35-ish or something hours, a lot of racing because there was still a lot of being present, but it worked. So I was fortunate to be immersed in the realities of the working world very early on in life. I'd say when it comes to thinking about project work, I think a lot of folks would agree, hopefully on this podcast with me, that the skills of project management and doing project-based work is fundamental to work. And so I would say that, from day zero of entering IBM, I was tasked with activities that required me to kind of step back and plan them out and understand who is going to be available to me to help with knocking down tasks to accomplish milestones to yield some sort of benefit to the enterprise. And so I would say that it's fundamental, right? So we all have some of this skill baked in. But formally, it wasn't until like later on in life where I got an opportunity to basically be a part of the store systems leadership team at the TJX company. So this is the company that owns TJ Maxx and Marshalls and Home Goods and HomeSense and for companies in Canada called Winners and that in Europe called TK Maxx and certainly beyond at this point. It was here, and I guess I will align like becoming a project manager in some respects to now being required to or asked to use things like Microsoft Project to actually do these initiatives, like build out a multi-month in many respects when it comes to retail. Not typically a multi-year, but a multi-month plan that, where we can be clear on who's doing what and when. So very predictive in nature, of course, at that time. And this is where I really started to get immersed in project management and started kind of getting aligned to PMI and that work. So long-winded response, but I think it's fundamental to all we do. And then first time was when I got into store technology, and it was very clear once the holiday season was over and we were clear on how the company did coming out of the end of the fiscal year, which typically would end January 31st, would be the end of most retailers' fiscal year, getting budgets together in February, that you now had between effectively, March and late September sometime to get things done. before everything was frozen again so that you wouldn't impact the holiday season. And it was so very tight. And I learned a lot about operating in an environment like that.
Yeah, retail is very interesting. We have a client, not TJX, but yeah, same space. And
Sure.
wow, the end of the year gets wild. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the kinds of changes that we're doing in a time where in most IT environments, you just shut it off and go home.
Right.
Like,
Not in retail. Yeah.
oh
Yeah. There's
man.
no holiday slowdown. It's all hands on deck typically. And when I
Yeah.
was in it, it was all hands on deck. Don't ask for time off. If you're
Yeah.
even at TJX, if you're needed to get to a store and help in a store and something like that, then you might need the help in a store. It is always when it's funny, like during that time of year, it literally is always when you don't want something to go wrong that it goes wrong.
Oh, crazy. Yeah. Yeah. We got a few team members that were doing a lot of work on New Year's Eve.
Correct. Yeah. Nature of the beast.
Scrambling.
The nature of the beast.
Yeah, that's right. What'd you study?
Yeah. So in undergrad, it was information
Yep.
technology. In grad school, it was entrepreneurship. So
Cool.
undergrad at UMass and grad school at a school called Babson. Got my MBA there in entrepreneurial studies and stuff. But I would also say for me, like I was blessed, if you will, to grow up in a home where my father was a technologist. And as far back as I can remember, and I get a chill thinking about it, as far back as I can remember, I was like I was under data center floors. I was with the wires. At my dad's job, I was constantly in fear of, then they had systems called halon systems that basically the fear was if it ever goes off, would suck all the air out of the room and you wouldn't be able to breathe or anything. That's every time I go and you see the warning labels. But just to say, in my house, like in our basement, I literally had a data center in our basement as well. My father had built out early. Just the house was wired for data connectivity, and I got to be immersed in it super early in life, and it just carried through, I guess, my whole career at this point.
That's awesome. I love that. I try to create the environment for my kids too. Like my oldest daughter's 10 and she's got a 3D printer and she's like wanting to build the stuff in CAD. And she's like, it's fun to pick the stuff right out of the inventory and use someone else's design. But I want to do it on my own. What would it take?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's gonna take a lot of work, man.
Yeah, and even we're here. We got. If I could pan my camera, I got 2 3D printers. One that's filament based. And then the other one is a resin based, which is a unique. But yeah, I'm with you. Immersion in the technologies, like the physical, like actually being able to touch and see the results of what you're doing in bits, in atoms, is like a very impactful thing. Like, so we have robots here that will chase one dog but not the other one, or a blue ball versus a yellow ball, all sorts of things using computer vision that we've built. So like completely immersion in it and understanding this is your everyday. This is everywhere now in your life, no matter where you go. And I just want it to be clearly understood by certainly all of my family. So
Yeah. It's interesting. My wife is a great balance for me because she's such a luck. If it was up to her, she'd have every piece of technology gone. But she really challenges me and the kids. She's like, all right, why are you printing this thing? What are you doing? Are you learning anything from, what did you learn from this? Or you ask Google, what an answer is. Like, why don't you think about what you think the answer is?
The 5 whys or the 3 whys, however. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So she's good. She's good for me. Good balance for sure. And she tolerates all the gadgets and craziness that happens. When the AI takes over, it doesn't work for me. Right. Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for that background. I think it's a great lead in to talking about, that Project Zero. For the listeners who haven't heard about Project Zero, haven't listened to us before, Project Zero is that first project where you figure out how to be a PM. Either it could have been successful, it could have been a failure, something in between. But we just like to hear from project leaders, what was that first one where it clicked, where you really figured something out? And then we learned from that a little bit. So, Shawn, tell me a little bit about your Project Zero.
Yeah, it was some time ago, but I was immersed in the kind of rigor of executing projects again when I got to TJX. And spending the time basically first and foremost at an arm's length structuring how I thought this from a phase perspective would go. And granted, we have some clarity on what kind of high level phases should be, certainly per PMI or even at TJX per what was expected there. Being able to then move with the resource managers and understand their perspective on how I was thinking about putting together the plan as aligned to how they would be spreading out their resources across a multitude of projects, spending time with the actual task owners and understanding how their reality to kind of what they felt like it would take for them to do a certain amount of work, spending the time to effectively plan was, I think, something that was like super impactful. It was specifically the one project that I can remember that was of most consequence was effectively we at TJX moved the processing of credit transactions from an outsourced firm to an in-house data center. And going through that process of planning out not only the buildup of the new platform, but then how we would gracefully do the switch, the cutover to the new one, took an immense amount of planning, not just from a technology perspective, but also the finance team as well, and getting them aligned on when this would happen. And they were a huge part of supporting that initiative. That was a significant project. I felt like we learned a lot. It was a successful project, and not just because of me, but the team that was helping to execute it. I'll tell you, like as I started to get more into executing projects, it's weird how my life, if you will, then I talk about TJX because it was the first time I really started doing this. My life was centered around like these chunks of time, right? And I talk about kicking off something, maybe late February, early March, and needing to have it done late, September or in a little bit all the way to maybe mid-October before we had to slow things down. Like even that, it felt like it accelerated my life.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because there was so much you had to do within this at a company of scale within a short amount of time. And it just felt, next thing you know, it was September. Snap, it was September.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a moment for me where I was like, wow, like this is, even if just mentally, because we know time is time, but even if just mentally, it felt like time was racing because of the nature in which how I was having to monitor activities and all that we had to do. For the first time for me, I wanted to try and switch things up. And we can get into that. We can get into that later. But yeah. So my that was a little bit of my Project Zero. I know it's a little bit elongated story, but getting to work with just a broad range of folks at IBM, which was again my prior company. I certainly worked with a lot of people, but it wasn't as, the rigor wasn't there. The structure of it wasn't there. Again, projects are inherent to work, but the structure of project management wasn't there. TJX, it was there.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I have several colleagues that have worked at TJX and they moved on because it's just, they didn't have a passion for it, or the rigor was very much there. Yeah. And it was a great place to learn how to do project management. It's incredible what the structure that you guys had. Did you have mentors though, or was it mostly, you went through the learning curriculum and executed? How did it work for you?
Yeah, it was more of me doing like self learning in many respects. I came in at a pretty high level within the company coming off of my last startup. So I came in at pretty high level within store systems. And so there was a lot of aligning to the rigor of that enterprise. I had to just be the curious soul that I am and ask questions and navigated through it. And it wasn't that there was like formal training provided by TJX per se, but I pursued what I needed to get better at what I was doing. Is how that worked.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that you described this phenomenon that a lot of PMs experience. They don't realize, they haven't described it the way you have, right? Life moves so fast during intense projects. I remember my big project it took over 3 years to build the ACA implementation here in Vermont. And I turned 30 during that
Yeah.
period. I had a kid during that
Yeah.
period. I was on like outage calls
Yeah.
while holding my kid and giving my wife a break in the middle of the night, but man, it went by so fast.
Yeah.
It went from 28 to 31 or 32 or whatever. And it feels like it was just a blip,
Yeah. A blip.
Uh,
A blip. Yeah,
yeah.
it really did. And it was just, and at that point, like I recognized it. And so for what it's worth, I'm sure it has informed me in a variety of different ways,
Mhm.
but I recognized it. And even for me at that point, I did observe that a lot of it was the chase and getting people to do what they had committed to do. And certainly I had my withdrawals from it at that point. And there's like I got a whole deeper story around it. But I actually, got to experience the store system side, which is focused on brick and mortar. Also, then at TJX led the technology team, the
Mhm.
technology side of the house for the first tjmax.com and homegoods.com websites, which took on a different feel, more resource manager feel than PM, but still helped with executing some pretty significant efforts there. I actually left TJX and went into consulting,
Okay.
where I did program management. And I'll tell you, and we may have spoken about this before, but there's a huge difference in executing projects and programs in a consulting firm than in a large enterprise. In a consulting firm, your ability to control that project is the difference between whether or not the company is going to actually be profitable or not.
Yeah.
Right. Where in large enterprise, you're going to be a little late. Oh, okay. Keep at it. And that's maybe an overstatement, but just to say in consulting, it's not that, right? It is your execution is typically directly connected to the profitability of the firm. And whether that you want to look at it as if it's certainly under a fixed model, you're going to be very thoughtful. You're going to be very mindful of how hours are being used and what you may need to do in order to get to the benefit without exceeding the hours that you committed to with the client.
Yeah.
If it's a T&M, then you're thinking through the lens of, I need to align on what the client's budget was for this project. So if I don't, we may not get another contract from these folks if they see that we're unable to effectively estimate out what the work is going to take and do. Right. Certainly that questions your methodology, it questions your experience. And so I felt like that was an incredible learning as well. And a realization at that point of how it was an appreciation for the value for me of PMs and program managers working in the consulting world. And that was me. I can talk about what the clients felt about them, but all the same, that was a great learning for me. So maybe that was my project zero number 2. Or learning number 2 was going from doing it in a larger enterprise to doing it as a consultant was two completely different, almost night and day experiences from an expectation perspective in executing projects.
Yeah. I always whenever a young person comes up to me and says, hey, what are the couple pieces of advice that you'd give me about learning how to be PM quickly and accelerating your career quickly? Yeah. And I'm like, if you're in the life journey where it can support grinding a little bit and having that consulting experience, it's worth it. I worked 80, 100-hour weeks for 3.5 years, 4 years. Yep. I think that's crazy. I think that world is gone. A
little bit.
But that world's gone, but I got double, I got 8 years of experience in 4 years.
Right.
And that was life-changing for me. And then everything that I work on now doesn't, I run a consulting firm, but I started my consulting firm because I wanted to change how management consulting operated, right? And sort of wanted to prove that, hey, look, we can have normal lives and we can hire people that have different lifestyles and things like that. And we can do things
Right.
remotely. And so like, I wanted to change the culture of management consulting in my little
Yeah.
bubble that I live in.
Yeah.
But even the work that we do, like it's eye-opening. Like you get to work with 5 different clients all at
Right.
once and see all their different challenges and apply what you learned from this one to that one. It's so different in
Yeah.
working for a corporation. It's so different.
Yeah, that certainly was the other aspect of it, was the ability, and you'll hear me maybe mention this a few times, and I hope I don't lose it, but just being, for what it's worth, a curious soul, like
Yeah.
being able to have that vessel filled, if you will, that curiosity filled by being exposed to a variety of different industries, problem domains, was valuable, like fulfilling in many respects for me. At the same time, it gives you the ability to see the commonality across spaces as well. And which I think that is valuable, so that you can think about adjacents and where you may be able to innovate in an area that is based on some completely different space. And yeah, one of the greatest learnings was when I was in consultancy.
That's awesome. Cool. So speaking of learning in the corporate world, learning in consulting firms, what do you think the number one skill is for a PM? This is like the hardest question I ask people, because it's hard to pick one, but pick
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot more recently as I think about the nature of project management work, and certainly my journey as an entrepreneur. And when we think about project management as like the classical definition, it is centered around working on a unique endeavor that has a defined start date, effectively a desired end date, leveraging a finite amount of resources to accomplish a scope.
Yep.
And so for me, I'm starting to think it would be incredibly valuable for more PMs to be exposed to entrepreneurial methodologies. And so, yeah, I'm not going to probably do classical. It's important that you're detail oriented, or that you know how to communicate, or that the typical things that you might hear. I think that PMs need to spend more time around entrepreneurs. I think they should pick up more books centered around entrepreneurship. I think that when you're in a position where you have to be, for what it's worth, potentially more of a generalist in many respects than a specialist in an area, that understanding kind of value flows, understanding certainly how to motivate a team, understanding how to look at kind of market dynamics, understanding how to advocate for resources. For me, it's with VCs. I at this point completely believe, right, that is something that I don't hear a lot about, or maybe ever hear about. I would encourage PMs to jump onto your Udemy or your learning site and search for some entrepreneur courses, because I think that being the skills that an entrepreneur require in order to tell a story, in order to get everyone aligned on a vision, to best utilize resources, I think can go a long way for PMs to then get the credibility from their behavior, right? Their behavior will help to establish credibility that counters what I often see for project managers being, unfortunately, being accountable, but not for things, but not having the responsibility to truly, like, they don't have the authority, better said, to always affect the thing that is in their way. And I think an entrepreneurial mindset will help you to better navigate to the point where you will get more cred that will give you more authority.
I love that. I love that advice. And it's interesting because like we have a lot of our consultants are independent consultants who work with us. And so part of what we do, we almost look at our consultants as our clients too. And I think everyone should think about their employees as their clients, right? Yeah. And we do a lot of entrepreneurial kind of stuff, even like how do you look at your books and how do you think about marketing and things like that? And oh my God, it just gives you just such a different perspective. And to your point, the more entrepreneurial PMs, the consultants on our team, they're the ones that are getting like these 5-star reviews from our
Yeah.
clients and like all the stuff of
You
that.
operate differently. You operate
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
That's right. That's
Maybe
right.
a little above and beyond what some would expect, but being able to read the room and behave in accordance with that
That's right.
space, I think pushing as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur mental model, mindset, however you want to characterize it, I think is incredibly valuable skill for any project manager.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we only got a couple minutes left. I'd
Sure.
love to, we haven't talked a lot about Harmony yet. I
Yeah.
usually ask a question like, where do you think AI is going and how's it
Sure.
going to impact project management? You have a product that
Yeah.
is built around that. So tell me what Harmony is going to do for project management.
Yeah, as stated earlier in the conversation, Harmony is an agentic AI project manager. At this point, I would say it enters an enterprise doing more of what would be characterized as project coordination. It does not come with a new user interface or a dashboard. Harmony does not replace any of your existing PMIS solutions. It doesn't replace your project or your Jira or your smart sheets or the like, right? It gets instantiated in your environment by being provisioned a licensed Microsoft Office 365 account. So we are focused on larger enterprises, and the majority of those larger enterprises are Microsoft-based environments. Once it has a mailbox provision, Harmony is able to email you. It can do calendaring and look up free time and schedule meetings. You can communicate with it on Teams. It is able to create, store, edit documents on SharePoint or OneDrive. And it uses all of your existing tooling that you would use, whether it be at the execution layer. So I mentioned some of those tools before. So like the Microsoft project, so Harmony can read and write, create MBP files. So it will work. It'll work with that all the way to being able to make updates to SPM solutions, so strategic portfolio management solutions, as those are used. So that can be a North Island 360. It can be a Fluid platform where those are used by then portfolio management teams to aggregate up what's happening on a project. Harmony will create project plans, assigning resources based on availability and skill set, or jump into an existing project, ramp up on what's going on, and run from there. It does all the follow-up activities very tactfully, checking in with individuals on where they're at, on tasks, on actions, on risks. It is constantly participating in both email conversations as well as meetings as well, and teasing out actions and assigning them and following up, and risks and assigning them and following up. You get an action or a risk from Harmony and email and go, hey, Harmony, this is not for me. This is for Shawn. Okay, great. Thanks, Alex. I'll reassign it to Shawn. Shawn gets notified. It all works beautifully in that regard. It'll produce all the status reports as required. If it's not done out of one of your PPM solutions or what have you, then on a ad hoc or scheduled basis based on what you tell it, it will produce status reports, steer code decks. It's constantly doing risk analysis, both internal and external as well. And truly, like when we look at it and the conversations that we have with leaders out there, it does a lot of the work at this point of a coordinator. It's able to take on enough work that PMs truly can take on more projects, right? And so we talk about augmenting and elevating, that PMs get to be in a position where it's less about, for what it's worth, being considered like just the administrator of the project, and now being the leader of it, because you're able to abstract away from the daily tactical and get on the balcony and now engage more with, as required, the team, and dealing with any dynamics there or stakeholders, and making sure that you spend enough time with them on clarity and on what's happening and when it's happening, and getting their advocacy, that you're able to focus on what are the high probability, high impacting risks. Not all risks anymore, because Harmony will help you there. The high impacting, high probability risks you're able to focus on. And all of this these aren't like, for what it's worth, individual capabilities. Harmony is made up of well over, I think at this point, some 300 agents that you don't people don't see them. They don't interact with them individually, but it is a well integrated capability where one capability is working and feeding another capability. And so, yeah, we spent a lot of time thinking through what it is that has been understood about how people remember things from a memory perspective, and then like active memories and working memories and long-term cold storage, if you will, to what are the discrete tasks that folks do and how we can progressively chip away at them. Again, our intent is that Harmony will actually make project managers more valuable. You just heard me use the term be a leader. So we refer to the project managers that are aligned with Harmony as project leaders as well. I think it's a better term. It's a more valuable term. And that's the deal. We are working with a lot of Fortune 50 companies, Fortune 500 companies. And yeah, there's actually a pretty cool capability we just launched on our website called Talk to Harmony. And you can actually go there and register, and Harmony will send you a link, and you can have a pretty awesome, completely comprehensive conversation with who are you? How do you work? Anything you want to ask, literally anything that you want to ask it will answer in a very thoughtful way. And it can give you a sense for how Harmony would work.
That's so cool. So all the PMs listening out there, Harmony is not coming for your job. It's coming to be your best friend. Right. Really love the concept, Shawn, and shared a little bit about the behind the scenes. And it's just, I'm really excited to see where this product goes.
Yeah. No,
really
thank you. There's a couple things that we have experienced on this road is that oftentimes, interestingly enough, people believe that the work of a project manager is the tool. Like literally they feel like what you do in Microsoft Project or Smartsheets or Asana or ClickUp, like that is your job. That there's nothing more that you do besides update those visibility platforms and coordination platforms. And I have told more people than not that the tool is not the work, right? The tool is not the work. It is a component and aspect to support collaboration and coordination. There's so much more that a PM does and should be doing more of that. In some respects, sometimes those tools though are very necessary. Those technologies are very necessary to keep us individually aligned to an understanding on where we're going and where we're going. But PMs do so much more. Harmony is going to be supportive of making sure that PMs have more time to be the leaders that they are. When I talk to PMs, there's typically 3 things that they tell me as to why they became a project manager. One centers around wanting to drive business outcomes and being strategic. Another being that they liked working on new initiatives, that they didn't want to be a part of operations where they're constantly like basically doing the same thing over and over again. And 3, like they wanted to like lead people, like they wanted to be a part of running people. It's not that they wanted to chase adults to come back to update some tool or be nervous about having missed or forgotten about some key risk, or the list can go on and on without, I got to get this leader data and details and this leader and wants abstractions. Like that doesn't come up in the conversation. And we're clear on that, and certainly look for more, are always interested in talking with PMs and getting their grounding on what it is that is the work for them and where they could use support. And again, coming as a project coordinator, any PM is going to want to have that support so that they can execute from the balcony.
That's awesome. Shawn, thank you so much for all your insights. Thanks for the work you do. And thanks to everyone who listened to Project Zero this week. Be sure to subscribe to Project Zero wherever you get your podcasts, and we will catch you next time with another great project leader story.